Hello and welcome to our free beginner sewing course. So this is what progress looks like, guys. Yes, we have made it to module 3 and we are in the first lesson. We are finally in pattern drafting. I just wanted to do a very brief introduction in the next 1 minute, and we're going to be going to our pattern paper, and I'm going to do a brief drafting of our pattern, of our basic skirt pattern. I wanted to first talk about our basic blocks. What does basic mean? Basic mean the most simplest of it all, and that is exactly what it is that we're going to be doing here. We're going to first draft all the basic, so it is on the basics that you are going to be building. When you start from the basic, you go to intermediate, right? Then you go to advanced. So that is how we're going to be working here. We're first going to be drafting all the basics. We're going to be sewing all the basics. It is important to know the basics, right? We're not jumping to go and do all the we're not jumping to go and do all the big things. We start simple and then build your foundation up until when you know that you are strong enough to do the big things. Is that okay? So for our basic skirts, the basic skirt is the simplest of it all. So we're going to be needing just these 5 measurements, and you're going to see me apply it. It's going to be very applicable. So make sure that you follow the tutorial, listen to the audio so that you can understand what you see my hands doing there, because you're not going to be seeing my face anymore. What are we going to be needing? Our natural waist circumference. If you've not watched the video, if this is the first time you're coming across me, I'm Messi Adebayo, and if you've not watched our previous video on how to take proper body measurements, I know that there was an issue with the audio. Maybe I might be uploading another video in the future, but that one works just fine because I did a lot of explanation on getting your proper body measurement, especially as a beginner. Okay, now we're going to be getting our natural waist circumference, our full hip circumference, our waist to hip, that is our hip line, our skirt length, that depends totally on you, but I will recommend let your skirt stop at your knees so that you will know how to take long skirt measurements, mid skirt measurements, short skirt measurements. Okay, sewing and all of that. Then the last but not the least is the apex point, and that is it for this intro. Let's get right into our pattern drafting. See you guys. Okay, so we are here practically live, and we're going to be making one video the drafting and one video the cutting and sewing. So the measurements that we need the natural waist circumference. I know I wrote this down on the board. Natural waist circumference. Remember where your natural waist is. We want a fitting skirt. The next one, we need hip circumference, hip line, skirt length, apex. I don't need to explain this again. Let's get right into drafting. First things first, you want to mark half an inch. You measure this. For me, I can already estimate where half an inch will be on my paper. So I just want to draw this as a consistent line. This is more than half an inch though. Yeah, it's a little bit more than half an inch. It's like it's quite slant. Let's draw that. Remember that we are using pencil. We are not using marker. Okay. Now, the way we do this is we're going to be starting from this. We're going to imagine that this is a fabric that we folded into two. So you see the way I folded this paper into two like this. Imagine that this is a fabric that we folded into two, and this is the center fold. We're going to mark this as the center what? Fold. Center fold, center front. We usually call it center front, but I want people to understand the concept of fold. Okay, this we're going to be starting from the front pattern. Very easy to make. Now we're going to first start with our vertical measurements. What are our vertical measurements? The hip line is a vertical measurement. I told us already. What is your own hip line? My own hip line is 9 inches. So I'm going to mark 9 inches here. I'm going to come here and mark 9 inches. Okay, so you know what we're going to do? Before we mark the 9 inches, we are supposed to, this is not a high waist skirt. We are supposed to remove 1.5 inch or 1 inch for the skirt band. It's a normal skirt band. So mine, I'm going to be removing I forgot that. I'm going to be removing 1.5 inch. So I'll make sure that the measurement starts from that 1.5 inch. Instead of 1 inch, it will start from 1.5 inch because we're going to imagine that this point is our waist band. So my measurement should start from 1.5 inch. So it's going to be 9 inch on this point. We're going to be marking our hip line, our vertical measurements first. Our hip line is 9 inch, and I'm going to come here still holding that 1.5 inch, and I'm going to mark 9 inch. Remember that hip line varies per person. Your hip line can be 7, your hip line can be 8, your hip line can be 9, your hip line can be 10. So remember that it varies per person. So let's write hip line. I think this is going to be outside the measurement. So still on the vertical measurement, we are starting from 1.5, and then we're going to mark the length of this skirt. So the length of my skirt is going to be 31. Take note though. So the length of your skirt can be on your knee, it can be wherever you want it to be. Remember that you're starting from your natural waistline to take this measurement. So I'm going to mark 31, and then I'm going to add 2 inch allowance. So 31 and then 32, 33. So the length of this skirt will be 33. Okay. So I'm doing that off the camera for so you cannot see it. I'm going to rule that line straight, just the way I rule this hip line. The next thing that we're going to do now is start taking our circumference measurement, and we are going to every measurement that we're going to do should start from this fold. That is why I specifically marked it. So you are going to be taking this beginning of your tape will start from here. You don't take measurements from here, you take measurements from the center, because that is where you get accurate measurements from. Now, the waistline, the natural waist. What is the waist circumference that you measure there? My waist circumference round about my waist is for skirt. Skirt is usually more fitted than blouse so that it does not fall off your waist. So my waist is 27. So 27 now. All your round measurements, one, two, and even round the skirt, you're going to be dividing it by 4. So our waist circumference is my own waist circumference is 27. Okay, round about my waist. Now, because of the way we have cut this paper on folds. This is the front panel. Let me write it for you. This is front panel. And the front of your body is half of your body, right? The back of your body is another half. And this front panel now, we have now folded this front panel into two because we have imagined that we folded it, right? Center fold. Remember, I was telling us when you fold your fabric into two like this, and imagine that this is the only front panel, so it only makes sense to now divide, because we've said that the front panel is one part of the body and the second panel, the back panel, is another part of the body. So that's one divided by into two, that makes it half. And when you now divide half into two again, well, that makes it 1/4. So you divide the panel into 1/4. So that is why we're going to be dividing our round measurements, our circumference measurements, into 4. So when I divide my measurement into 4, what will it get me? So on this now, you can see the tape where if you're able to do calculations very well in tailoring, you know that 26 times, you know that 6 times 4 is 24. So the way I get it is that this point is another full measurement. 6 1/4 is 25. 6 1/2 is 26. Don't want to confuse some people. 6 1/2 is 26. 6.75 is 27. So 7 now. 7 is 28. 7 times 4, but multiplying it by 4. So see 27 here, 6.75. So instead of going to your calculator all the time, you need to know all these points in your head. You need to just be mastering them just little by little, little by little. So now we are going to be doing our hip circumference. Those are the two measurements that we divide into 4. What's my hip circumference? My hip circumference is 41. So 41 now, we know that 10 times 4, we know that 10 times 4 is 40. So 41 should be around the corner. And 11 times 4 is 44. So 40, 10 and 10.25 times 4, that's 41. 10 1/2 times 4, 42. 10.75 times 4, 43. So see 41 here. So 41 divided by 4 is equals to 10.25. So 10.25, I've marked this whole place. So that is what we're going to be measuring. And then we're going to be adding allowance. Remember, I taught us about seam allowance. So we're going to, this is where our seam line is going to be. But then we must add allowance to that seam line. So you see, I've added 6.75. And then I have to add, for a beginner, I'll recommend that you add between 1.5 to 2 inches allowance. So where do we get another 1 inch? Another 1 inch. Now this is 6.75. Another 1 inch now will be what? 7.75. So if you want to make it 1.5, you make it 8.25. You see the plenty mass. Or you can just go to your calculator and say, if your waist is like my own, 6.75 plus 1.5, you mark it there. Now on your hip line, my hip circumference is what? 10.25. So this is 10.25. We're going to mark that here, and then we're going to add 1.5 inches. So this is this 1.5. Okay, now we're going to come to the under part of the skirt, and you're just going to do, let me shift it. Let's imagine that this is the under part of my skirt. Okay, imagine that this is the under part of my skirt, and I've ruled a line like this, because this is not the under part of my skirt, but this is where my camera can get to. So let's imagine this, and this, what's the length of the skirt? Let's see if I can work with it. 27. I'll add 2 inch allowance. Remember that you're going to be working with your allowance. So let's say your allowance is 2 inches. 2 inches here, mark 2 inches here, mark 2 inches here, and connect it. and connect it. You see that it's so easy. Now, what you're going to do is that you're going to take your hip measurement, right? Remember that we say we're measuring from here. You're going to take your hip measurement, which is 10.25, and you're going to minus 2 inches, which will now become 10.25. You go back by one, you go back by another one, it becomes 8.25. So we're going to mark 8.25, and then we'll add 1.5 inch allowance to it. So see 8.25 here, and then you add 1.5 inch allowance, which will be what? 9.75. So now we're going to connect these 3 points. One, we're going to connect to the hip, to the length of the skirt, and to the natural waist, which is off the camera. Let me connect this point first. And then I'll connect to the hip. So now my hip is not supposed to be this pointy. Never ever. Never ever should my hip be this pointy. That's going to be some crazy, crazy work there. So all you just need to do is to use your free hand or use your ruler and curve the hip like this. Okay? Going to curve it. This has eaten into my measurement. When you curve it, make sure your hip is curved. Your hip is not pointy. Okay? Have you seen anybody with pointy hips? Now, the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to create a dart. And that is where our apex measurement, our nipple to nipple measurement comes in. So you're going to mark, if your nipple to nipple measurement is 4 inches, like mine, you're going to mark 4 inches. But if it's not, please. And then depending on the type of skirt you want to create and kind of fitting you want, but the standard for a skirt is 4.5. That's the standard. So you can use 4.5, but if you see that 4.5 is still giving gaping, you can increase your dart measurement to 5 inches. So you can reduce it depending on what you want to do. So now you're going to connect this line to this line that we've created here. And then on both sides of the dart, you need to mark 1 inch on one side and half inch on one side and half inch on the other side. And then you're going to create, then you're going to mark it like this. So now this 1 inch that we have removed is going to make this place shorter. So one thing we're going to do is that we're going to add back this 1 inch for the dart, because once you sew this place in, it's going to remove it. So we're going to add it back and then connect this line. We're going to connect this line back to the hip line, and then this one will become void. Anyone you see me mark like that becomes void. So this is our basic skirt that we've created. See how simple it is. See how simple it is with very minimal. And that's why I always love starting with this one, because it's the simplest of them all. Remember your natural waist, we're going to be adding a band here. And if you want to create a skirt without a band, you are going to start your measurements all the way from your natural waist. You're not going to be removing anything for band, right? Want to create a bandless skirt. Yes, there's bandless skirts. So now for this skirt line, everything still remains the same. Every other thing remains the same on the back, except from this point. So now you're going to be marking 1 inch for your zipper allowance. Your zipper allowance is a little bit different from your sewing allowance. Why? Because this is where your zipper goes. So anywhere you see zipper allowance, that is your where your zip will be sewn on. That is the seam where your zip will be sewn on. So you're going to roll this line like this. You're going to roll this line like this up onto the end of your skirt. And it is at this zipper allowance that your slit would come on. Yes, you have to create a slit, especially if it's a fitted skirt. You have to create a slit. So you're going to roll that line up onto the end and roll the line directly beside, you see what I'm doing? Directly beside the center fold. So now this center fold that goes on the front is the same center, but it's not going, this back piece will not be cut on fold. The back piece will be cut as two separate pieces because it's going to be joined separately. It's going to be cut as two separate outfits, not two separate. It's going to be cut as two separate pieces, while the front is going to be cut as one piece. So all we just need to do now is to mirror all measurements here. What are the measurements? Your darts. You're going to remove your dart intake, remove these points, and then make your darts for the back 5 inches. I don't want to tear my paper. Let the dart for your back be deeper. Still using your apex measurement. You see, I've already marked it here. Using your apex measurement, come down a little, mark this point, okay? Then come down like this vertically and mark. So you need to mark that again to make sure it tallies. Okay, so now you're going to connect the 3 lines. What is the first line? The main dart. Remember, the reason why we use that is because our body is 3D, and we need to make the places that are smaller than the others, we need to make them fit. Okay, so this is the dart for your back. Now we're just going to outline every other shape like this. So you're going to cut out every other thing the exact same measurement as the front, like this. Label this back, label this front. So this front, remember that you're cutting on center fold. Remember that this one will be two pieces, okay? Remember that this will be two pieces. Now, what I want you to know that almost every skirt pattern is the same. There are only very slight variations, very, very slight variations. Like in some variations, maybe like the Winfred, is it Winfred, Winifred, the Winifred drafting variation, you curve the you curve the top of the skirt line by half an inch. So the skirt line is curved, and then the back pattern has two of this. So you divide the back pattern into three. So this is one method of drafting a skirt, and this method works. It was worked for me. Um, Also, this method that I gave you, there's also another method where you define the bum line. So there's a bum line right right under your hip line. There's a bum line here where you use it to give like a curvy looking skirt. But this is a basic skirt, and this works perfectly. So um so see you in my next video for the joining and the cutting out process of this skirt. Bye guys. So thank you for staying to the end of this video. If you've not liked this video, if you've not commented, if you've not subscribed, oh yeah, do it now, because we are going on a journey, and I'm super excited to go on this one with you guys, because I know how it felt when I did it all by myself. I know all those years of struggling. So if you've not left a comment, kindly leave a comment. If you have a question, leave it in the comments. If you have a recommendation for other service, leave it in the comments. See you guys in the sewing video. Bye.